Good afternoon, everybody. It's Debbie and Rolo here, and today we're going to conclude Rolo's adventure with the theft of the World Cup in London in 1966. So, hope you enjoy hearing what happened next. And yes, he's here. I'm bribing him slightly. Right, settle down. Yulia and Bubo the owl were waiting on the kitchen windowsill to tell me some good news. The time tunnel entrance in the Athelstan tree was open once again. The woodland folk had accepted the help of the animals of the forest, and foxes, moles, rabbits and mice had helped clear the blocked passage under Dar's supervision. Athelstan was delighted. I went to see him at once. I approached the guardian of the time tunnel and he was very pleased to see me. I told him that I needed to return to 1966 London because I'd witnessed the break-in at the stamp exhibition which had led to the theft of the World Cup trophy. On you go then, little pup, he smiled. Where's your friend Chickpea? I wouldn't be surprised if her cat flap has been boarded up for a while, I said. I asked him about the Chilvester Passage and he just smiled his woody smile, which made me think I was yet to discover where else it might take me. I dropped the pink ball in the tree roots and squeezed my way into the time tunnel underneath the Athelstan tree, shaking off remaining bits of sawdust and twigs from the clean-up operation in the forest. Yulia was already there with her lantern. Meanwhile, back in London in 1966, 2 months had passed and the police still had no clue as to the missing World Cup's whereabouts, only a few red herrings. The London Metropolitan Police were at their wits' end and the newspapers were full of it. Made-up sightings of the Cup and photographs of foreign suspects had been pouring into Scotland Yard from all over the world, right from the minute the news of the theft leaked out. It had all become a huge joke. London's finest crime solvers were being ridiculed because the Cup had been stolen on their patch, as the headquarters of the Metropolitan Police was right next door to the scene of the crime. The police were supposed to have been guarding the famous and valuable trophy at the time of the incident. Would the World Cup competition itself now have to be cancelled? Would they have to make a fake trophy in secret? How would London look in the eyes of the world? No, something would have to be done, and pretty quick, to save the integrity of the great footballing nation. Approaching Scotland Yard, I spotted a navy blue police van parked outside on the pavement. A team of constables and detectives could be seen through a first-floor window, scratching their heads and thumbing through their notebooks in the incident room, going over all the leads they had in case they'd missed a vital clue. 2 German shepherd dogs were tied to the railings outside the van, waiting for their next instruction. One was known as Bullseye and the other was called Sniffer. Sniffer seemed to be in charge. I had to be careful how I played this or I might find myself under suspicion. I overheard Bullseye telling Sniffer that things were pretty desperate and that there would soon be a lineup of suspects, innocent members of the public mixed in with a few known criminals. A number of witnesses, including the cleaner, who had seen someone lurking around the cloakrooms of the exhibition hall on the afternoon in question, would be asked to try to identify the thief from this bunch of men. Sniffer confessed that he wasn't too hopeful as there wasn't much to go on. He'd been on many identity parades before and it was always difficult to pick out a suspect when they all looked the same. The lineup would likely be no different, with all the men wearing trilby hats pulled down over their faces and their collars turned up. Their features would be in shadow. How would any one particular person stand out? I gave a polite little cough and stepped out from the shadows. I believe I may have some information that may help you catch the thief, I said as bravely as I could. I had their full attention now as they strained on their leashes to get a better look at me. What makes you think you can help? Said Bullseye gruffly. Tell me, what do you police dogs do if you're at the scene of a crime and there is a tall fence in your way blocking your vision? I asked politely. Why, we put our paws up and peer over it, of course. We're big dogs, it's part of our training, said Sniffer. Well, we little dogs look under the fence and see things you probably don't even notice, I replied. I could see both police dogs thinking about this and not really getting it. What are you trying to say, Scruffy? I let that go. I think your man was wearing shiny brown pointed shoes, and if I'm not mistaken, he chews Wrigley's spearmint gum. You'll find the evidence you need under the big heavy bench inside the exhibition hall on the right of the empty trophy case. You might even find the thief's address if you use a bit of intelligence. How on earth could you know that? Dogs can't see in colour. Just a minute, we found dog hair around the empty case at the scene of the crime. How do we know you're not the thief? Bullseye barked suspiciously. Sniffer raised an eyebrow. Trust me, I said as mysteriously as I could, and as these big dogs were chained up and I wasn't, I took my leave of Sniffer of the Yard and Bullseye and legged it round the corner. The comment about not seeing in colour puzzled me. I thought to myself, probably they could only see in black and white because it was the 1960s. I put it to the back of my mind. It wasn't important for now. The dog's angry bark soon brought policemen scurrying from the incident room, and they quickly unleashed the dogs, piled them in the back of the commer van and put the blue flashing light on. The streets were filled with the sound of nee-naw as they screeched, only a couple of 100 yards to the crime scene, arriving before they'd even shut the back door of the van. I smiled to myself from my hiding place behind a dustbin, and then pondered the more immediate dilemma of where on earth was the trophy. The World Cup finals were due to start in a month, and still no sign of the stolen trophy. I could only hope it hadn't been melted down for its solid gold properties. Surely it was too well known to sell on. Hopefully the thief was still hiding it at home. I remembered the address on the piece of paper that wrapped the discarded chewing gum. I went secretly by train amongst the stowed bicycles in the guard's van from Charing Cross to Norwood in South London and found the house. With my ear up against the window, I overheard a very nervous and heated exchange of ideas as to what to do with the package and how to extort a hefty ransom. An argument ensued. I went down the path and back onto the street, thinking the best course of action was to hide between two parked cars and wait and see what happened next. My instinct told me that the thief was panicking and losing his nerve. He would have to get rid of the package. One car was a Ford Anglia and the other a Morris Traveller. I saw a man come out of the front door in question carrying a holdall. He stuffed a package wrapped in newspaper under the front wheel of the Anglia. From where I was hiding, I could smell the distinctive aroma of spearmint gum. The shifty-looking man glanced around him and then scuttled back inside number 68. A quick pawing of the newspaper under the wheel arch of the Anglia revealed the unmistakable gleam of gold, and now I had to figure out what to do and how to draw the attention of the police. I knew I couldn't go back to the police dogs, so I stood guard over the cup. I hoped that the police dogs had led their masters to the clue I told them about, and that they'd found the address and were now on their way to apprehend the man who smelt of spearmint. A black and white collie dog was approaching, on a lead. He bent down to greet me between the two cars, and his owner tugged on his lead. I saw a folded-up newspaper under the man's arm, with headlines about the possible cancellation of the football competition. I whispered to the collie, "Do you want to become famous?" He looked surprised. "Show your owner that parcel under the wheel," I whispered to the docile and obliging dog. Just at that moment I heard the familiar nee-naw of the police van, and Bullseye and Sniffer flew out from the back doors the minute the vehicle came to a standstill, and they dragged their police handlers up the path of number 68. "Go on, now's your chance," I whispered under my breath. I stayed out of sight and watched the police lead a handcuffed man with shiny brown shoes down the front garden and push his head down as they bundled him into the back of the van. I was fairly sure I could smell the faint aroma of Wrigley's spearmint gum as they passed me. The next thing I saw was the dog walker crouching in the gutter, exclaiming, "I don't Adam and Eve it! Pickles here has found the ruddy World Cup." Once more my mission was complete, and it was time for a sharp exit. Hitching another ride from Norwood to Charing Cross among the bicycles, I passed under the ticket barrier amongst bare legs, short skirts and sharp suits, and crossed the road carefully, setting off in the direction of Trafalgar Square. As I trotted along, I saw a blue police box. There were quite a few of them around in the 1960s, but you don't see them anymore. I believe that the purpose of them was to house a telephone to the nearest police station. I went a bit closer to have a look, as I hadn't seen a police box at close range before. I lifted my leg on the corner and the box made a strange noise and disappeared. Definitely time to get back to the 21st century, I thought. Maybe I wasn't the only one to be time travelling around here. So it was actually Rolo and not Pickles who found the World Cup, though of course Rolo, being very magnanimous, decided to let Pickles discover the stolen trophy. So I hope you enjoyed listening to us today. We will be back tomorrow afternoon with a completely different chapter from another one of the secret adventures of Rolo. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.